Right, so I'm very excited or very curious about these recent news about the Switch Pro. So this video, when this got recommended to me, I had to watch it. So let's go. Switch Pro might actually be an OLED Switch XL. Okay.
I have made it no secret this year that I've been very skeptical about us getting a Switch Pro this year sometime, and there's been a recent news.
I mean, most people said, ha, first pause. Thank you very much, Matthew McGuire. Thanks for the follow. I should mute these alerts when I do reactions, but oh well. Thanks. I'm actually, if a Switch comes out, I'd buy that.
Report that might prove me
Switch Pro.
wrong, and I am a-okay with that.
Kevin Canson
Bloomberg has
Gaming.
been a major source in the past in terms of potential Switch Pro news, and one of their newest reports.
Well, since Bloomberg is just a pretty decent news site, can I get an ooh woo?
Points to something that looks like we might not only be getting a Switch Pro this year, but giving us a couple more details about what it could entail. And the most interesting bit to me is that while you could certainly call this system a Switch Pro, which is something that really the audience has been doing and not necessarily Nintendo themselves.
I was thinking about what can you do in terms of like the Switch, what would actually upgrade the hardware. Yes, you can put in a faster chip, but you can't change the form factor a lot. You can't make it very much thicker, right? It's not really possible. It would like lose the handiness of it. More RAM, that's true. Maybe have a better OLED screen. Can't fucking talk. Yeah, that's about it, right? Maybe make the dock a bit more powerful, but I think that only gives power, right?
But it might be more accurate to say this new system could be the Switch XL. The big specific piece of news is that Nintendo.
I mean, being in Nintendo's line of naming stuff, Switch XL would actually make a lot of sense because there is the Nintendo DS XL or 3DS XL, right?
Is supposedly ordering a large number of OLED panels from Samsung.
Ooh, Takashi Mochizuki. Thank you, Takashi. Very nice.
That are not only OLED rather than LCD, but are also 7 inches in screen size. Now, the one part about this news that I think some people are going to react a little negatively to, but I don't think is necessarily the right reaction, is the fact that these new panels are still.
Let me hey, hold up. Samsung Display Co. will start mass production of 7-incher 720p resolution OLED panels as early as June with an initial monthly target of just under 1 million units. Damn. Said the people who asked not to be identified discussing internal matters. The displays are slated for shipment to assemble around July, the people said. Representatives for Nintendo and Samsung Display declined to comment. Of course, why would they comment on that?
720p. One of the big hopes a lot of people have had for a potential Switch revised model is a higher resolution.
Basically, it's a trusted leak. Seems like it, right? I mean, at least why would Nintendo buy those screens then? For what, right?
Not only in docked mode, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but also in handheld mode, which if it's a 720p screen, isn't the case. Honestly, keeping the 720p resolution, in my opinion, isn't really that big of a problem. Most games are.
I don't care about the 720p resolution on handheld. I mean, I think a lot of people want 4K on the TV, but I just don't see that happening. Look at this little tiny piece of hardware. How the fuck should that output 4K? In like stable 60 FPS. How should that tiny little Nintendo thing do that?
Already designed to be running in that profile in handheld mode to begin with, and while this potential new screen is larger at 7 inches.
Anybody know what the dock actually does? I think I've read yesterday that it only has like the HDMI ports, right? And it gives the Switch more power. Does it do anything else? It doesn't have additional processing power, right?
It doesn't really drop the pixel density by that appreciable of an amount. In fact, you can actually use a calculator for what the optimal viewing distance is for different pixel densities. And while the regular Switch certainly has a higher pixel density that's best.
Yeah, at the end of the day, resolution itself doesn't really matter as long as the pixel density is good enough. And 236, I don't know, how much does my iPhone have? I think my iPhone has like 3 something. Pixel density surely will take a hit, yeah.
At 15 inches away, the revised pixel density with the same resolution on this larger screen.
Oh yeah. See, I'd love to see some context on how much like my iPhone has or like my old PSP and stuff.
would be 16 inches. A single inch change. Not that big of a deal.
True.
What's much more important about this is not only that larger screen size, but the fact that this panel is OLED, which offers a bunch
I mean, the OLED is very power efficient. You gotta give it that. OLED is very, very good. Very good.
of different potential upgrades. First off, by being an OLED panel screen, you're going to get way more vivid colors and much better contrast, much deeper blacks on the screen as well, and a more...
I should at least try out Ori and the Blind Forest once. It's made by an Austrian studio, game studio, so I should at least try it out. People have been saying it's so good.
Energy efficient panel that should improve the battery life of the system, especially for any games that are very focused on dark visuals. Not only that, but it's worth noting that because OLEDs don't...
And True Black as well. True, yeah, that's the coolest thing, I think, actually. Ori is amazing. I've played both. Cool. Cool. Maybe once. Maybe I'll try it out once.
Rely on having a backlight that actually also frees some internal space inside of the Switch body itself, which if we're going to assume it's going to be roughly the same...
Wait. So, cover glass linear polarizer. Polarizer? Yeah, that isn't there. Circular polarizer instead of it. Color filter glass, that's not there. Encapsulated glass, okay. So, way less stuff.
Body size, which we'll also talk about in just a moment. That would allow for some additional room to either beef up some other components, maybe a bigger battery, better air ventilation.
Is there a problem with heating issues, overheating issues when you play something like Breath of the Wild or like a Witcher 3 on the Switch? Does anybody have a Switch in here? Because I think a bigger battery would probably be even better. Are there like battery concerns on the Switch whatsoever?
All kinds of other ways the system could receive some minor upgrades. Now, when I talk about having the same size body as the regular Switch, the reason why I say that is because a 7-inch screen is actually the perfect size for still using the same size model body we currently have, which is important for a couple reasons. First off, if we're assuming it's the same body size, this effectively means that the bezel on the Switch will no longer exist, which is one thing that has bothered
Oh, okay. I mean, that would be fucking amazing. I mean, that's a thick-ass bezel. It's a thick-ass boy.
Since the system's release. It'll have the same size body.
Is it really that thick? Damn, I didn't know that. I mean, I've never seen a Switch in real life, so... It do be thick.
But at 7 inches, it'll fill that entire rectangular area.
Oh, that
which
would be
looks
cool.
A lot nicer.
Yes.
What's really important about this too is the fact that it makes sure that the same body size is consistent, so Joy-Cons still make sense attached to the system. So it's not like there's going to be some new Joy-Con design that is specially designed for this new body or model. Nope. It's going to have likely the same general body shape, so those Joy-Cons can attach and act basically the same, whether they're the new ones that come with the system or the ones that you got back with the original Switch.
Gotcha.
Again, this is all conjecture based on the fact that they are supposedly ordering these size panels, but
of course, yeah.
Honestly, it makes a lot of sense.
I mean, why would they make it bigger, right? What would be the point of making those Joy-Cons? I mean, Jinx, you said you had some problems with the Joy-Con sticks there.
Now, something that the same article touched on but did not dive into quite as in depth is the fact that, again, one of the main rumors about the system is that it's going to still be a 4K capable console. But what's important here is that how it is achieving 4K is not really specified.
I think it will probably upscale. It probably will upscale. I would take a guess that it will just be upscale, like it will use some type of like NVIDIA DLSS upscaling.
I think some people are really hoping to see something along the lines of like a significant power boost in the system that would allow for native 4K visuals, and I really don't think that's the case.
And I don't think 4K is necessary whatsoever, because a good upscaled image, like NVIDIA DLSS has shown in the past, or just shows every day, that like you absolutely lose no quality, but get a lot more performance out of it, and that's just awesome. So I hope they go for that, if that's somehow possible. I think they're using like the NVIDIA Tegra processor, right, on the Switch. I think that's like an NVIDIA processor in there. Like a GPU, like CPU and GPU combined.
Nintendo being Nintendo, there's always the chance they have some kind of wildcard move to pull and they surprise all of us, but what I think is more likely here is the other very popular rumor in regards to a Switch Pro, in that it would instead rely on NVIDIA's
There you go.
DLSS in order to allow for a fancier version of upscaling
Yes.
that takes that 1080p image that the game is normally rendered at, but instead uses AI to upscale it to 4K and have those better, cleaner looking visuals.
Yes.
Is it the same as native 4K? No, but it is much, much closer and much better looking than what we're currently seeing with games just being rendered out at 1080p directly to your TV, regardless of what resolution your TV is.
Yes, I know that, like, you cannot tell the difference in that. I am sorry. I don't think you can.
Alongside the specification for these panels, the article does also state that the suggested timeline for this is with mass production of them starting in June, leading to delivery in July, which could be suggesting a release date of these systems happening sometime by the end of this year, just in time for the holidays. So what's the big takeaway here?
This is the way for the Switch, just improvements. Really, yeah, the Switch is like a perfect system, it seems, right? Why would Nintendo make like a new system out of that? Like, why would they do something like they did with the Wii, where they made a Wii U and fucked everything up? Switch is like, seems like almost perfect, just improve some of the smaller, minor issues that it has. Maybe make some upgrades in terms of like the performance.
What Bloomberg is saying is true. The main things to look forward to in an upcoming Switch model would be a larger screen, a better looking screen thanks to being OLED rather than LCD, potentially better battery life either by making use of that additional space freed up and the fact that an OLED panel is less draining,
Yes.
and a system that again achieves that 4K resolution that a lot of people have been clamoring for on a potential Switch Pro model, though the specifics have not been detailed just quite yet. Well, I don't think this is necessarily the exact thing that a lot of people were dreaming and hoping of for a potential Switch Pro model. It is a modest enough sounding upgrade that I think it is something a lot of people will potentially
Is he? I'm curious if he will be talking about this. If, like, for someone who doesn't have a Switch yet, I would, like, I'm definitely gonna get the Switch OLED XL, whatever they will call it. I will definitely get that instead of the normal one.
Upgrade to once it's released, or might be that big upgrade people have been waiting on to justify buying a Switch because they've been waiting on buying one until some kind of new release was made. I gotta say, while again, I was very skeptical about a Switch Pro happening potentially this year, especially because of all the things that have been going on in the world, this particular report does kind of spark in me again that hope of seeing something like that happen. And an OLED screen is definitely a major improvement that I would be excited to see on a new Switch model. And going back to what I was saying at the top of the video, given the fact that one of the potential changes is that larger screen size,
Sorry to pause, I just realized this right now. Damn, look at this Mac Pro in the back and the Apple XDR display. Holy yoinkers, my wallet is hurting from just looking at that setup. Damn.
makes a lot of sense that if Nintendo wanted to stick with their own form of branding, that for this model they wouldn't necessarily call it Switch Pro, because again, that's something that the audience has just kind of made up for them, but instead, with that larger screen, they could very easily lean into that kind of branding they did for a lot of the
Yes, there you go, that's what I meant. New Nintendo 3DS XL. My god, this branding is terrible. New Nintendo 3DS XL.
3DS and DS line, calling it the Switch XL. That's at least what I think about all this after having heard this news. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Do you think this actually does mean a Switch Pro is more likely to actually happen this year? Are you still very much against the idea of it possibly happening? Is this something that you think you would buy?
I think it could be possible.
What price do you think it'd be worth for those kinds of upgrades? Let me know down below in the comments, and I will see you guys later.
Right. That was a good video. Really excited about the possibilities of maybe buying a Switch with Pokemon Pearl/Diamond remakes. Would be very excited about that. It would be very cool.